CMMS Radio talks about all things CMMS, computerized maintenance management software, focused on maintenance management. It's the people, the process, and the culture that make your CMMS journey a success. All right, folks, there he is on screen. You're looking at Donal Bourke. He is the managing director of Eleco, and he's the director of PMAC, and we're going to get into all that today. But first of all, Donal, welcome to CMMS Radio.
Brilliant. Thanks, Greg. Great to be connected with you, and thanks for the opportunity to speak today.
Yeah, well, I tell you, I've talked to some people on your team. I know you and I have talked a little bit before, and what we wanted to do today is kind of get into a little bit about not just your background, but how you got here in this space. I've read some things about it. I don't have any script or anything. I just want to go through some cool questions, but I hadn't had an awareness about PMAC, and some of our mutual friends had reached out to me and said, "Hey, do you know these guys?" And I'm like, "Well, no, but I'm about to." And they made an intro. So shout out to Engineering Maintenance Solutions for making that intro for us. Steve Pheasant over there and Michael Dominguez, of course. I just want to give those guys a shout out for making the intro so we could learn about another solution that is available in the market. Folks, this isn't a product pitch. This is more about how does it really work from a human perspective. So, Donal, first thing, where and how did you get into, because I know you have a background in manufacturing, a lot of that's oil and gas, energy, a few other specific industries within, but can you talk us through a little bit about your journey and how you got into this space in the first place?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, as you mentioned, Greg, I suppose I've been working in the manufacturing domain for probably manufacturing, energy, and utilities domains for probably over 20 years now, between 20 to 25 years. Prior to moving into sort of CMMS asset management space, I worked for a global automation company for about 14 years. And that was a great experience, to be honest, a great learning experience, particularly across many industry verticals. So worked with a lot of clients in oil and gas, in upstream, midstream, downstream, worked in chemicals, worked in pharmaceuticals, nuclear, power generation, and water industry. So quite a diverse portfolio of industries. And within that business, I wasn't involved directly in CMMS or asset management, but what I was involved with was providing end-to-end technology solutions for clients in those areas based on automation systems and looking at the span of technology. So from sensing in process or in discrete manufacturing through to production control, safety systems, and then advanced applications for managing production efficiencies, safety, quality, etc., and that operational efficiencies then around how maintenance operations engineering teams engaged with systems and processes in manufacturing. So that really gave me, I suppose, quite a diverse understanding of the challenges within manufacturing environments, gave quite a wide variety of spread of use cases then. And through that journey, although I wasn't directly involved in CMMS or asset management, we were involved in condition-based monitoring systems, asset performance management systems, advanced process controls, and it was very clear that although maintenance may not have been directly in touch with some of these systems, the net positive effect of positive maintenance regimes on efficiencies in energy management, environmental production, etc., was very clear and visible. You know, once you had a strong strategy within your business on maintenance and reliability, the net positive effect upstream and downstream for the business was significant.
Yeah. And what I like about the backstory, the exposure to the multiple environments within industry as a whole, manufacturing, production, you're talking about oil and gas, even nuclear power, pharmaceutical. When you look at it from that operational and production standpoint, and you start to see and understand where maintenance fits into that overall outcome, more throughput, production, and all that, I just like the way all those nuanced experiences feed into how you kind of have this perspective or like a worldview on what's really there. You go into an environment, you see that they make a certain thing and they want high quality, they want safety, but you, based on everything you just said, are also not only mindful or cognizant of maintenance's role, but you understand how critical it is and how that all attaches. There's this big kind of, people go back and forth on this, and I think a lot of people say it, but they don't necessarily articulate it well. I have some friends that can do it really, really well. When we talk about maintenance, there's this idea that maintenance is not a cost center, but either a revenue driver or contributor, or even a potential profit center. Can you speak to that at all, just as far as how you would explain that to somebody, the value of maintenance, a proper maintenance process within your plant environments?
Yeah, definitely. I fully agree that it's a that it is a it's not a cost center, but it is a value driver within business, and there are direct, as I say, and indirect relationships between how it uh, helps businesses achieve other objectives outside of maintenance. So how we look at maintenance within our business is we see it as an ecosystem, and how we're driving maintenance with our customers, but also the customer systems, their processes, and also our technology partners, is looking at how we can build integrated value across the, what we would say, sort of the virtual value chain within the business. So integrating with systems that then can see the net positive effect of a maintenance interaction. So for example, if it is, you know, working on steam production assets or assets within high intensive energy based businesses, looking at the correlation of positive maintenance activities and the net effect on energy output within the business or within environmental based systems. So if it's effluent monitoring, emissions monitoring, etc., and that, looking at that from the regulatory compliance perspective, ensuring that your systems are accurate, they're measured, they're compliant with standards and regulations. All of these things are critical, but all of the tasks associated with those KPIs or business objectives are firmly held within the maintenance function within the business. So they're very much value drivers within maintenance that are helping other parts of the business achieve their objectives as well, and giving direct positive outputs. Yeah.
Yeah, and even CMMS or other systems aside, I think invariably we can look at maintenance and tie it to various components of the overall organization, even within those ecosystems, to like what you just said. You're talking about the impact on energy or energy consumption or better utilization of available energy.
Yeah.
All those things kind of play together. That speaks to sustainability, which is certainly a goal. A lot of people are chasing things like net zero or maybe something less, but they're trying to make an effort to be more sustainable and eliminate that kind of a waste. Like, let's not use too much energy, let's not overtax the system, and let's still maintain high quality and high output. And maintenance plays a role in a proper running piece of equipment or line, or fill in the piece of equipment, critical and sometimes non-critical, if they're running better within their design parameters, the design intent behind the machine itself or where it sits within the line, that uses less of, and you can also
Exactly.
kind of fill in the blank. So as we're telling the story and going back and forth, and we're envisioning the environments that you've
Yeah.
been in, you're thinking back to them right now. If I switch it over to the CMMS, the platform itself, not so much about the features of it, but it's going to in a sense, with the right foundation, the right kind of culture and buy-in, frontline using it, that's going to feed in to all those different systems to fill out that picture. But here's the question. When it comes to your technology, bringing it into the environments, there's this thing about maturity, and it could
Hmm.
be technological maturity, but very specifically, we hear about, and I would like to talk about maintenance maturity, because
Yeah,
I I found that you have a way to help folks understand where they're at in
yeah.
that maintenance maturity level. So can you talk a little bit about why that's so important, why it really matters for how you're going to help a potential client?
Yeah, exactly. It's significantly important because, particularly when, as you go back to your point on organizations looking at CMMS as potentially a cost center or a cost to the business as opposed to something that's going to drive value or ROI. Um, it's important to take a step back and look at the organization in terms of the level of maturity across its organizational culture related to maintenance, its data related to maintenance, its process, because CMMS in its own right isn't going to be the golden goose. It's not. If all of those ingredients aren't perfect, then you're not going to have the perfect results or the high end ROI or whatever else. So within our organization, we have teams within our services and projects that come from maintenance based backgrounds, have worked in manufacturing, worked in reliability centered maintenance programs. So how we like to approach projects or optimization of systems with clients is to first get an understanding, do baseline assessments on their business. Assess, well, how is your data currently structured? How are you using that data to drive your maintenance strategy? What does that maintenance strategy look like? What level of maturity is that? So during our assessment phase, we're assessing all of these characteristics related to the organization, the people, the culture, the data, to see where there's potential gaps and areas for improvement before we can implement the CMMS. Now, sometimes it really depends on organizations and their approach. Sometimes organizations like to move quick to system, but we try to embed at least that if they want to move to system, that they have a journey of optimizing their strategy over time as well.
Mm.
If you're not doing it up front, make sure that you're doing it as part of the process of either project delivery or post delivery. That you get your data structures right, you get your organization structures right, and you use that data, whether through criticality, etc., to drive your maintenance strategy. Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. You bring up a really interesting. I don't know if it's a point, but it's just this thing that I also see people wrestle with out there, and I don't know if there's a right answer. Maybe there's a wrong answer, but there's something in a little bit of a gray area where, based on what you just said, and I held this belief in my past as well, where sometimes you can start and do some form of a deployment if you've got the right kind of solution, a team behind that solution, and the right kind of team within your organization to backfill, improve it along the way.
Mm.
Many would say really dangerous, because
Yeah.
a lot of times that doesn't happen because bandwidth goes away suddenly as soon as they sign the PO and they start
Yeah.
using it. And all of a sudden you're watching your brand new client that you knew was going to be rocking and rolling and thriving within the next maybe even a year, right?
Yeah.
And you're seeing they're not doing it. And because they kind of went back to what they were doing. So that's always risky. But I do believe that there are certain solutions and teams that can work together to, let's get to this point, and let's not lose sight of our constant kind of improving of that part of our process with the technology. But you're kind of juggling too.
Yeah.
Um,
A hundred
so I'm
percent.
I'm I'm always a little bit on the fence about that, depending on what they know about their business, because our job, no matter what role you have within PMAC, right, is to kind of seek understanding the client so you can meet their needs and guide them in the right directions, because there's a couple of spots within the solution or how you run your departments to go left, right, or straight,
Yeah.
maybe a squiggle over here. If they don't know their business very well, they're going to struggle to articulate what they really do. So do you have an opinion on, maybe opinion is a strong word, but what do you think of this idea of clients that are a little bit lost, sometimes changing what they do that was successful? Maybe they have some gaps, but it was successful and they just want to start documenting and improving
Mm.
when they change their process to meet the solution. Like I see that as a
Yeah.
risk area.
Oh, definitely, and it's something that we come across quite a bit. We operate in regulatory environments quite a bit in life sciences and medical devices
Mm-hmm.
and that, and we've worked with clients with legacy-based systems or uh, systems that were probably more complex or larger with defined processes that didn't effectively match the needs of the maintenance function within the business. Um, and they're functional, but they're not necessarily driving value in that. Um, so being forced into a certain way of operating doesn't optimize the usage of the system, is what we see. Creates typically poor sentiment around the technologies and that. So when you start moving towards a project, again, to bring them from that type of system into a new system, the change management piece of the project is critical,
Mm.
ensuring how, okay, CMMS systems can be very descriptive in terms of workflows and processes and that, yeah. Um, but it's how you bring the technicians, the engineers, the maintenance teams on that journey as part of the project delivery of change management that's going to be key in getting that adoption and use. Yeah.
Yeah, and adoption seems to be the one thing we can all look at across all solution types within organizations, where without effective and impactful adoption, like adoption by the right most critical users, right, without too
Yeah.
many
Yeah.
gaps,
Yeah.
and consistent use with standardization, the most magical, powerful, intuitive systems on the planet aren't going to do anything.
No.
And the front line is the key. And far too often, what I hear about all the time, unrecorded conversations, right? Where
Yeah, of
we're
course.
really
Yeah.
just cutting loose and talking crazy. There's no mics around, no cameras. And people are talking about the front line, the front line, the front line. They were forgotten in this process. And then
Yeah.
you dig a little bit deeper and you'll find out the front line was in on this. They were good. And then somebody changed something, maybe in the workflow. They started adding clicks back into the process. And the, it's so important to maintain that entire link from top to bottom. I don't mean it in a disparaging way, but like, the from the boardroom to the plant floor
Yeah.
has to have some connection points that are real, extremely consistent, and that requires a little bit of language translation, because the boardroom speaks bonus, the boardroom speaks balance sheet, the front line speaks, let's get a bunch of good stuff done so we can see
Yeah. Yeah.
production just running and gunning. We don't want to be putting out fires. And then the CMMS sits in the middle trying to capture, communicate all that. What do you think is the biggest barrier to, once you have adoption, the biggest barrier to actually moving forward on the system in a way that allows you to start optimizing, get to a point where you can start optimizing things like preventive maintenance
Yeah.
and all that? It's kind of a tough question, but is there anything that just jumps out at you?
Um, Biggest barrier. I think the key thing for us, like the barriers exist if you don't really have an understanding of the as is situation and the desired future state and how to get there. To be quite honest, so I think, as part of our services or project delivery teams, we emphasize the importance of doing those baseline assessments prior to doing any project. And even if the prospective clients don't select us, uh, we say, look, the value of these assessments will set you right in terms of the mindset of what you need to drive your project forward. And that's so when you go in and you do those assessments, you're identifying potential barriers, whether it's culture, whether it's people, whether it's adoption. What are you going to come across within the shop floor with engineering technicians, with corporate strategy? What are their drivers? What do they want to achieve from this project? What do other functions want from this project? And what's your current operating model for maintenance? And what level of transformation is required there in order to move to that desired future state? Is the product going to do it in isolation? What do we need to do in terms of organizational changes potentially? What needs to be done in terms of process procedure changes within the business to align with the new systems and that as well. So I think if you do the upfront assessments, you're eliminating as many of the barriers as possible. As you mentioned before, it is a difficult situation where the ideal situation from any vendor, CMMS vendor, would be we want our clients, every CMMS vendor wants their clients to get to value quick with their software. If things aren't working based on poor data, poor process, poor people adoption, it's very rarely seen that it's the organization that's the issue. The relationship goes back to the product. Say, this system is not working. Yeah. We do not like this system. Yeah. So it's critically important to ensure that all of these assessments are done to make sure that as a vendor, we identify where there's issues and the customer acknowledges where there's issues related to their data, what those changes need to happen in terms of data structures, what needs to happen in terms of process procedures to get the value out of the software. And if we can agree on those and map them out as part of a project delivery, then you're eliminating barriers, but you're also getting the customer to the time to value quicker. And then the perception of the use of that software, whether it's ours or another CMMS vendor's software, the perception of that software is far greater than to see the value.
The whole time you were explaining it, and you got to that point where they turn back and they're like, "Oh, this solution isn't working for us."
Yeah,
I think even unbeknownst to them, that's a pretty easy place to look and say, "Oh, this is the problem." And I think it's because you have multiple people involved. It's not the easiest thing in the world for someone to be self-aware. It's not the easiest thing in the world for someone to say, "Ooh, accountability. I want that because I know what to do with that because that's going to help all of us, including me and the organization." So a lot of that, you talk about perspective or perception. It comes down to that. And a lot of people talk about training, but there's this other thing I want to ask you about. So you're familiar with ADKAR? Within ADKAR, the R in ADKAR, ADKAR.
Okay.
The R is reinforcement. So when your solution is brought in, they deploy the CMMS, they've done a lot of the things right, they've got some good data, they've done some walk downs, they've developed an asset hierarchy, they've got good service types and categorization, lots of standardization, all those things. And they're using the system and using it well. They're starting to develop some data. They're, let's say, 3 to 6 months in, and they're like, wow, in a year, we're going to have enough data to start actually looking for opportunities.
Yeah.
Because that doesn't happen overnight. That doesn't happen in months. You can get some low hanging fruit. You can do some cool stuff in a couple of months or so, but a year, 18 months, now you can start seeing what are we really in retrospect, present time, and future. But the reinforcement of these processes that the frontline, mid-level management, even top level management have all adopted and they're bought in on this, they can start to get kind of lazy. They can
Yeah.
start to,
Yeah.
oh, yeah, I'm going to close those work orders out on Monday because I got to get home on time. So I've always wondered how each company tends to approach this idea about revisiting their training, revisiting that assessment. Let's do a system assessment. And I've heard of a lot of companies that want to, and it's part of the deal and all that, and it just never happens. What do you think of that concept? And do you guys do anything like that where
Yeah.
you can really keep your finger on the pulse for the client and help them not create their own problems on the
Yeah,
system?
exactly. What's really interesting on that point, and I'm not quite sure if you would be familiar, but there's an internationally known model when it comes to how people learn, right? And it's the 70-20-10 model, right? So
Ah,
typically 10% of people's learning comes from sort of learning management systems or web-based systems, webinars, etc., and that, right? And then 20% comes from classroom-based training. Okay, the rest 70% comes from experience. Yeah, we learn so much from experience, right? So in a lot of cases, CMMS vendors will have solutions that span the 10 and the 20%. Yeah, so they'll have learning management systems, they'll have classroom-based training, uh, and the 70% in some cases is ignored because it's seen as, well, the technician's experience is learned on the job. But can we augment that? Yes, we can. We can augment that. We can augment that by supplementary and complementary services. So,
mm,
reviewing processes, reviewing SOPs, what has changed in that 12-month period. So, when you come back, you're reviewing organizational change. As you said, there's never anything static in an organization, particularly in manufacturing. People leave, a new piece of equipment comes in that needs to be maintained. It's also connected to previous processes within the, the existing system.
yeah.
Um, so it is extremely important, and also some systems become decommissioned, assets become decommissioned, etc.
Mhm.
That so it's extremely important that we revisit, we reassess, we understand what has changed in the period of when it went live, and maybe 12 months, 6 months, whatever the clients are see as feasible, and how proactive they are to looking at that change within their organization. But aligning then within the experiential part of the technicians, right? What has worked for you? What's not working? Let's review those procedures, right? You're seeing problems with data. Let's have a look at that, and that's all blending into their day-to-day experience, because you're looking at them carrying out the job, what's worked well, what hasn't worked well, what has changed, and then you're redefining the next stage of improvements. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's ideal and something for, if I was talking to everybody, which, pretty much impossible, but there are going to be people that have their CMMS solution and they're at a level, maybe price point wise or resource wise, that may not be available. But when we're at a certain point, I'm not going to say
Mm.
what that is, that becomes, where there are resources available from the provider.
Yeah.
There are potentially resources here on our side as the client to do those types of activities or workshops, but for real, not just checking off the boxes. And I've seen this happen at some user conferences, different companies, not your own, but
Yeah. Yeah.
other vendors in the space, where the intention behind the user conferences is for those environments to kind of create. The difficulty with that, I think it's a great thing. The difficulty is the companies using the solutions can't send their entire team to the user conference, because then their
No.
business isn't running. So it's really good once or twice a year, I would say, depending on who you are and what's going on. Some clients might need more, but having a day or a week during which you're visiting these things with the people in the room, showing them the work that they've created, showing them what that opportunity is going to be, that really gets it in there. So it goes beyond that 10 and that 20%, because
Yeah.
a lot of systems out there, they really do the web training. You can call, you can get phone support, you can get a user manual, you can interact online and do that good stuff. You can hire them out and they're going to come out for 3 days and train your people and do all that cool stuff. But this extra layer you're talking about, that's a good way to reinforce what they're doing, because you're showing them the value of what they've already created with it.
Yeah, exactly, and it depends on the organization and scale. So some might use us for 1 day per annum to just do a reassessment, but we
Mm,
do have long-term contracts where we're on monthly engagement. So with particular global clients, so our service organization will be on site with them. They'll go in, they'll review monthly progress, they'll set up the next stage of improvements, and they'll drive that on a month by month basis. So they're nearly an extension of maintenance and reliability within our clients. That's a service that we offer. As I suppose really some of the points you've raised as well, depending on the scale of organization, how much value they see in their maintenance and reliability programs, how invested they are, um, really determines the appetite for that type of service to go back, reassess, continuously improve, and that. So some organizations will engage us maybe for 1 day per annum just to do an assessment, just see
mhm.
what has changed, and they'll implement the recommendations or improvements from that. Other organizations were contracted in, so some of our multinational clients that were working on multi sites and things like that, our professional services teams are in on a regular cadence. So maybe a couple of days a month, every month, reviewing, assessing, and setting improvement plans and projects within maintenance and within the system as well. So yeah, it really comes down to scale, but it it links into that 70% then of the experiential learning of the clients, and it's very very important because nothing is a constant when it comes to manufacturing across organization systems, processes, etc. And that, so
Yeah. A lot
continuously
of
improving is key. Yeah.
moving parts while you're making parts or
Yeah,
processing
exactly.
materials or whatever it is. No pun intended there, but then
Yeah.
again, they're everywhere in maintenance management, asset management. You puns galore, right? Some of them are
Yeah.
really bad too.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, well, okay, I so this is a great kind of initial kind of introduction for me to PMAC and kind of some of the things that you see and understand. The reason I don't like to get into features and functions
No.
is not everybody's looking for that. If they want that, they can engage you for sure and get that help. But I would like to have you go through. I want to switch you to the closing segment for first timers on
Right.
CMMS
Okay.
radio, and no surprises here. These are just some fun questions. No wrong answers at all. Just gives us a way to kind of know you in a different light, if that's cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the first one, no wrong answers. First one, what's
Okay.
your favorite music?
Right. Well, interesting enough, I think I commented on this before, and it mightn't reflect in how I look now, but so my background, I used to play in bands quite a lot. So I was playing in bands since I was about 12 years old. Started off with rock, so Black Sabbath, Jimi Hendrix, and that. Metallica, moved into metal, heavy metal, and even death metal. Would you believe? Yeah, see
Yeah,
Metallica. I think it's 7 or 8 times now, from recollection. I can't remember. I have to look at the
yeah,
tickets, but yeah. So that that was my core genre. But I have, because I played music, I've quite a diverse genre. I just appreciate good music, good musicianship. So I like jazz, I like funk, I like many genres, but my core was always, what I was rooted in was sort of rock and metal. Yeah.
nice, nice. I love it. Everybody knows I love that. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
next question for the fun question segment is: what is your favorite sport or hobby? And on sport, it doesn't have to be one that you play. It could be one you just like to
Yeah.
watch and cheer for.
Yeah. Well, being from Ireland, one of my favorite sports is a local sport Ireland called hurling. But looking at international sports, it'd be rugby. And then as a hobby, my pastime hobby is mountaineering, hiking. So love that. That's what I
Good.
spend most of my time doing. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good one. That's a good one. All right. So here's the big one. And
Mm,
again, I remind you, no wrong answers. What is your philosophy, perspective, anything at all? Is it even a thing when it comes to
right.
this concept of work-life balance?
Yeah. Wow. Good question. Yeah. It's interesting. I think the dynamic and shift changed quite a bit when COVID came and we all went digital as well. Because I think the working environment was very different before COVID came, where it allowed time. You were traveling to clients, you were traveling to other offices within your business, you were walking in the office for coffee breaks, you were having incidental breaks and conversations with people that sort of just happen as natural process. Then we switched to a predominantly digital environment where meetings became back to back. So I think there was a lot of digital saturation post COVID. So I think for me, what's very important is when I'm in my working week, uh, I dedicate my lunchtime, right? So it's very easy for people to just work. Work will always fill a void. Yeah, it will always be there. So I take the time out to just disconnect during the day for that half an hour, 45 minutes, and do something completely different. Get away from telephone, get away from laptop. Um, as I said, hiking's a pastime. When I go on holidays with family and that, no work phone, no laptop, just complete disconnect and that. So when I do the hiking, it's about completely disconnecting from what I'm associated with every day, phones, laptops, everything else. And I find that very rejuvenating. It's not so much a philosophy, it's more a practice to try and
Mm,
help, you know.
yeah.
But yeah,
It sounds really intentional, and the reason no wrong answers is everybody's doing it differently, and
mm,
it might give somebody an idea. They might agree. They might go, that doesn't work for me. It's all good, right?
yeah, exactly.
Some people have very unique approaches to it. Some people have opinions. Some people don't think it's a thing. Some people, yeah, it's definitely a thing. So it's just fun for us to have that kind of a conversation. Um, I love hearing what music people are into. Everybody loves music of some kind,
Yeah,
I think. Hobbies and sports. I mean, it's pastime, it's physical activity. Some of us were maybe athletes, all that stuff. So it's really good stuff. First of all, Donald, I want to thank you for being here with me on CMMS Radio. Your first time. I want to encourage anyone out there that wants to reach out to you that they can find you on LinkedIn if they want to have their own kind of conversation and just talk, ask some questions. It's Donald, Donal, and it's Bourke, Bourke. You'll find him on LinkedIn. And then, of course, if you want to check out PMAC, you can go to PMAC, PEMAC.com and learn all about them there. It is saying right here, best in class CMMS software, and there's a bunch of stuff you can read. My favorite thing about the website was under the mission statement, they've got kind of a three-pronged approach from core values perspective: reliability, availability, and maintainability. Those things go very nicely together. It's never about the technology. It's about the people behind it and the people that are using it and the process that you're following. Donald, thank
yeah.
you once again for being here with me on CMMS Radio.
Greg, thanks very much. Great speaking to you.
You got
All the
it.
best.
Thank you.
See you.
Did you find this episode helpful? Please send us some feedback, suggest a topic, or ask a question. Reach out to CMMS Radio if you need a co-pilot on your CMMS project. Visit CMMSradio.com and use the What's on Your Mind link. Thank you for tuning in to CMMS Radio, your resource for all things CMMS, from selection to implementation, to help you make better choices, learn from industry experts, and have a successful CMMS journey.